Yo, 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 Ram fans, good morning. Welcome to Monday Morning Cup of Coffee, Tuesday edition. I'm Steve Ivy with co-host Marty Lenz. Marty, how are you this morning, man?
I am groovy, just doing some house cleaning after a sick pup again. I don't know what is it about my dog, but she likes to eat random things and then she wraps them up in her crate and then I have to clean it. But yeah, so that for being a dog dad, I guess, all
I
part and
have
parcel of that.
we have our new puppy that is wonderful about. He's a really good dog, but he is amazing about getting hold of paper clips and
Oh
taking them from the shape of a paper clip to a straight metal line, and he can spend all day with it, and unfortunately you don't want him swallowing it. So yeah, I know about it.
no,
So anyway, hey, the big story of the weekend, obviously, and we get to talk about it. Did you watch the national championship game last night?
I did. I was watching it. My daughter, who is a Purdue alum, was begrudgingly somewhat rooting for IU just because she was a degenerate gambler with those apps, and I'm like, oh my god, kid. So, but she was rooting for Miami for obvious reasons. But yeah, I watched the game. I mean, it was a little slow to begin with, but then it picked up, and I mean it kind of played out to the way many people thought. I knew Indiana wasn't going to run away with this. Miami's probably the best defense they faced in the playoffs all season, and that was kind of the yin and yang. And just when it came down to it, it's about making key plays here and there. And Indiana made key plays on with runs with Mendoza, and Carson Beck is a good quarterback, but just short arm that pass at the end of the game. Just when I saw it go, but I said, oh, it's going to be underthrown, because if he just has a
Yeah.
little more loft on that, then that kid possibly catches it and scores. But anyway, it kind of it played out the way I kind of thought it would play out. And I say, as a sports fan, taking away the rooting interest of whoever's in your household, IU's got to be one of the best college football stories of the last 30, 40, probably 50 years,
Yeah.
of what they've done. First team to go 16-0 since Yale, and the tens, in the 1910s, and something like that. So yeah,
back
it's
back before my dad was born.
I mean, so you love that. And the other thing that I took away from it as well, and something I think CSU fans should, yes, Indiana's in the Big Ten, so they're going to be more resourced overall. But people forget this. Indiana has the worst overall record, or did until this year, in FBS. Now Northwestern is back in that thing. So funny, two Big Ten schools have the worst records in all of FBS. So that ought to give heart and hope to teams like Colorado State and others potentially that are trying to punch up. And yes, it's still a little more of a hill to climb for what is now called the Group of Five, of course. But I think the takeaway from that is saying is, if Indiana can do that, then why can't other schools potentially do that as well? So I think that's a great takeaway and story of it too.
Yeah, and to play on that, I thought the one interesting thing to me, first of all, I'm going to get one thing out of the way. I don't know how anybody can be a wide receiver nowadays when their shoulder pads get held anytime they try and
Yeah,
break it, run a
yeah.
pattern. But I'll leave that aside. Um, the quality of the coaching in that game, I thought, was very, very high. The execution was very, very high, and I think that's another thing that bodes well for CSU getting Jim Mora in. Is he's a high level coach, and when I watched Indiana, they remind me of Saban's Alabama teams. They really
Yeah.
do. They execute really, really well. And Miami is in kind of the same place with Mario Cristobal. The things I look at and I enjoy are really well run running plays down by the goal line, because they have to be executed so well. There's absolutely no room, and you have to do everything right in terms of the timing. 11 guys have to execute perfectly. Both teams ran really, really good goal line plays, and I thought that was kind of fun.
Two things, since you mentioned that leap to me as well. It, for guys of our generation, it's probably hard to be somewhat sympathetic to the U, because since we deal with recency bias, I tell people all the time, 30, 35 years ago, the U was the big bully on the block. 5 national championships. They were brash and boastful. I thought this Miami team, first off, they were under siege because no one thought they should be in the tournament to begin with. Playoffs. I hate when people conflate the sayings, but be in the
Yeah.
playoffs. And look at the run they had. Secondly, like we talked about, about execution. This was the first game that I saw Indiana's O-line kind of get beat up a little bit, get
Yeah.
taken to task. Mendoza was sacked. Was he sacked like 4 times in this game? So I mean,
Yeah.
it was Miami's defensive front was physical and brutish. And that's the first time all year that I felt there were times in those plays, especially the second half, that Indiana was on their back foot a little bit offensively on their O-line. So, I mean, it was even though the scoring, at least initially, was kind of like a fighting in a phone booth a little bit, but the high level of play, and as you say, the high level of coaching with all that is something like that. And I mean, and Kurt Cignetti is such a character. And that's the other story too. There were rumors that he was going to go to Penn State or go to all these programs that were bigger. And he's like, no, I'm going to stay here and I can build my brand here. And I would love to think that more programs, coaches, teams will do that, saying, let's really invest and let's see if we can do it here. And I get it. If they're going to pay me double the money down the block to do exactly what I'm doing at point A to do it at point B, then I'd be a fool maybe not to take it. But I think there can be greater, definitely legacy potential, and I think the money comes after that if you stay somewhere and do something like that. So it'll be curious to see what Kirk Cignetti's next move is. He is older by coaching standards. He's 62, so I know that's young compared to you. But those are things that I think we'll have to see what, if he figures I'm going to build my legacy, I'm going to coach here another 10 years, or what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on. We have a great guest. I've had this young man described to me by someone who really knows that this is a great young up-and-coming coach, and we could be looking at the next Ali Farokhmanesh, a young superstar in the business. So without further ado, let's bring on none other than Cole Gentry, assistant coach for the Colorado State men's basketball team. Cole, how are you this morning, man?
I'm doing well. How are you guys? I appreciate it. That was pretty high praise right there from you. So appreciate that.
Well, I didn't make it up. I just heard it from somebody else. Hey, to get started, I had you on the show this summer. We got to know you a little bit, but just to get things going, you came here from your alma mater, Wright State, where you had been an assistant. You're back in Fort Collins, full-time staff under first-year head coach Ali Farokhmanesh. I want you to be honest here. The real reason you came back to Fort Collins, was it Moby Arena? Was it Colorado State, Fort Collins? Was it the Mountain West grind, or is it just the thought that a first-year coach, you could get yelled at in a meeting by Ali Farokhmanesh?
All the above, and then I'll also add the chance to come on this show too was a big part of it as well.
The chance for one of these beautiful coffee mugs, right?
Exactly. No, but in all seriousness, really all the above, kind of like you described. I thought it was a good chance professionally to kind of grow my coaching ability, my knowledge. I'd already worked with Ali, worked with Tim when I was here previously, just kind of on the day-to-day stuff, the day-to-day grind that is college basketball coaching. And, I love those guys. They've taught me a lot. They continue to teach me a lot. And so I looked at it as a great opportunity to kind of keep growing as a coach and be a part of an awesome place like Colorado State.
Cole, I think one of the toughest things to do is probably coach at your alma mater. But at the same time, was it a little painful to leave Wright State and come back to Colorado State, just because the ties there, the love, the passion, the ties, the connection that you have?
Yeah, no, for sure. It was difficult. And the head coach there was one of the assistants when I was there as a player. And so I was very close with him as a player, very close with him while he was my boss last year. And so that did make it difficult to leave. And like you said, the ties and all the, the battles and the games I've been through at Wright State, it did make it difficult. But kind of like I mentioned earlier, I was also very close with Ali when I was a GA and he was the head coach. And so that kind of made it easier knowing that I wasn't going to a situation where I didn't know people or I didn't kind of know the lay of the land. I'd been in Fort Collins for a few years. So it was difficult on one hand, and on the other hand, it was exciting. So.
Of course, Wright State is having a great year. Last time we chatted, I think they're still tied for, still in first place in the Horizon League. You left behind a really, really strong program, and you helped build it when you were playing there as well. But I want to talk kind of where the team is at right now. Of course, Ali stepped in for after Nico left with a really successful run, three NCAA bids in the last 4 years. And this year, the team is sitting 11-7 overall, 2-5 in the Mountain West. A little bit of a slow start. Given what's occurred this season, is there anything in terms of your responsibilities that's keeping you up at night?
I wouldn't. I mean, I'd say all of it. For all of us, we're all trying to take that next step, make sure we're doing the best job we can to prepare the guys, and so. There's definitely some late nights, I'd say, for everybody on the staff. But like you mentioned, it's a long season. And, I thought with the schedule that Coach Pilipovich, Dave put together, I thought he did a great job of, preparing us for the league. We had some really good non-conference games where we knew like those teams will be good in their league. And so I thought we were well prepared. And, so far in the conference season, there's been a few hiccups and for various reasons. And we're doing the best job we can to make sure the guys are prepared going into every game. And so I would say there's definitely a few late nights, but we're excited to keep building on where we're at. And I think our guys are getting better every day. This is kind of the point of the season where you'll see some teams drop off just because it is in the middle. It's right in the middle. It's that grind of every day you're showing up. You're probably sore. You're probably tired. They're about to start school again in the second semester. So I think, this is a time where you'll see a lot of teams fall off, and I think our guys are doing a great job of, stacking days and continuing to get better.
On that note, Coach, are the guys? What's the mental? What's the feel of the team vibe, as they say nowadays? The attitude? Are they positive, optimistic? Still feel pretty good considering everything you've said, the grind, and also considering just getting everybody back healthy and getting the team cohesive again with everybody available.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think. Getting Kyle back, getting Rashawn back, not only helps basketball-wise, but it helps, emotionally the team. You don't want to kind of fall into that trap of getting down and you lose a few games and you can kind of get that like emotional kind of damage to your team that's hard to get back from. So our guys are generally a positive group, I would say, and they're realists too. They know like, hey, this isn't where we want to be at this point of the year. But like I said, they're showing up every day. Taking the steps, getting better at what we need to get better at. They're always coachable. So we always have that. That's not the case everywhere. Some teams are not, I would imagine, the most coachable teams, but we have a coachable group. And I think that, they'll keep taking those steps. And then, like you said, it does help to get everybody healthy, have a full deck going into every game.
You came off a really tough road trip, 0-2, a loss at Fresno and a loss at Boise State, and both games featured pretty large double-digit deficits in both games. And in both games, the Rams came roaring back in the second half. They came from 16 down against Fresno, and I think to tie the game, and they came from 12 down against Boise State to actually take the lead. But I was going to ask you, in both of those games, right as soon as we got back even, we didn't build upon it. We fell behind. I was going to ask, from your experience as a player, is there a tendency to maybe relax a little bit, like look at the scoreboard and say, oh, we're back in the game, and then lose focus on what brought you back into the game? Do you have any experience? Can you talk about that from your player perspective?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened in these last two games. And I think that part of it is too, you don't want to build those holes in the first half because you do have to, give a lot of energy just to get back in the game. So like you're describing at Fresno, you're down 16, you're down 14 and a half. And, we tied it up pretty quick in the second half. It was probably 6 minutes in the second half. All of a sudden it's tied. And then, because of that, I think guys can get a little fatigued. Maybe you're bringing in new guys because the guys are on the court just had a long run. And so just within the game, there's going to be runs. And so, like you said, unfortunately, yeah, both games we got back and then the other team made a run again, which to some degree will happen. But yeah, there definitely is can be a little bit of a letdown. You finally get, okay, we got it back. And then you feel like there's so much pressure on the next shot, or there's so much pressure on the next stop defensively. Whereas if you just keep doing the things that got you back in the game consistently, possession after possession, you'll like where you're at the end of the game. And so I think there was a little bit of that where maybe we finally got it back to be tied, and then we probably put a little too much into the next shot or next possession, and then there it can be that kind of emotional letdown when maybe you don't continue to make every shot, or maybe they throw in a couple shots. So I think there's definitely something real about that. But ideally, we can't get down double figures, in the first half. We have to be more sharp, more solid early in the games. So that's not the case, and we want to be playing with the lead, preferably, rather than chasing it. So.
Is it fair to say, and again, I'm a duffer in this. I'm a fan, who tries to watch with at least a little bit of IQ and intelligence. But is it fair to say, Cole, in some instances that it seems like our guys get a little out physical at times? And I say this, I know we are a shooting team, a 3 team, but it's also that old thing: live by the 3, die by the 3. There's times I'm like, man, pound it inside. I'd like to see we've got some tall guys, some physical guys with some athleticism around the hoop, pounded inside. Is that a fair, if you want to say, criticism or assessment of what I see with the team, at least at this point, that if they were a little more physical, a little more inside, that maybe there'd be greater opportunity to not get behind like that, or, when we are close, establish some of our will, if you will, in the paint to take leads.
Yeah. And kind of like you guys were talking about with Miami and Indiana, I think, throwing the ball inside is kind of like establishing your run game a little bit. And it's hard to quantify even how much that it wears on you when teams are throwing the ball inside, scoring in the paint, drawing fouls. There's that cumulative effect of that, similar to getting offensive rebounds, that, even if you get an offensive rebound and don't score, what is the cumulative effect of continually going to the glass, continually, like you're saying, throwing the ball inside, continually just beating somebody up in the paint? And so that's definitely something we want to establish. And to your point, we haven't probably been physical enough recently. And that's, the start of the game, that's everything. Physicality is everything, because you can't necessarily bank on – we are a great shooting team, but you can't bank on all those guys making shots every single game, every single 4-minute stretch, media timeout. So what you can bank on is your physicality, like you're saying. And so we definitely need to be more physical early, especially in those first halves, because then – you don't want the game to surprise you. You want to punch first, really, right when the game starts. And probably the last 2 games we haven't. And so that's, going into, tonight's game and Friday's game. And just as we move forward, we need to be the team that punches first. And to your point, also, it does help when we get back a guy like Rashawn or a guy like Kyle, where we can throw the ball into them in the post. And you saw at Boise, Rashawn did a great job, playing physical, taking his time, adding pivots, adding steps down low, getting angles and scoring. And that really helps your offense just settle down. It helps the defense. It helps alleviate a lot of defensive pressure, right? When you're able to throw the ball and then kind of slow down, kind of like another football reference, but like a pass rush, right? If you're able to run the ball, like, they're not going to be able to just tee off on your quarterback. So I think it all kind of plays hand in hand. And so our shooters will probably be better shooters if we're able to establish the inside game too.
So you talked about kind of a level of toughness, and every staff will talk about toughness, and it can mean a lot of things. But just from what you've seen and what you're feeling, from your perspective, who do you think on the team? Is there any one player or multiple players that stand out as guys that bring that high level of competitiveness, and kind of guys that you wish you could clone 10 times over?
Yeah, there's a few guys on the team that are like that, but Rashawn is probably the biggest one. Just, he's been through it at Colorado State. A lot of these guys have been through it, maybe other places though. Rashawn's been through it at Colorado State. He's seen what it takes. He's played with great players over the past 2 years, NBA players. He's played with guys that have done it at the highest level. And so he knows what it takes. And he's a guy that is consistent every day in practice. And that's probably the biggest thing when you talk about toughness is, a lot of guys can be tough maybe in a moment or for one practice or maybe a week, but can you do it over the course of a 5-6 month? I mean, we have these guys since August or since June, right? Can you be tough every day that you show up on the court and be willing to do the things that you're supposed to do the hard things every single day? And I think when Rashawn has been healthy, to me, he's a guy that kind of epitomizes that and shows that every single day. And so not only, like I said earlier, not only is it great to get him back basketball wise, but it's also great to get him back leadership wise because of that.
And on that note, Cole, I mean, because I'm a firm believer in chemistry over biology, and I think there's a lot of great biology on the team, but because you have Member hurt and you had Jorgensen hurt, I'm assuming you're still trying to get the right rotations, the right people in the right spots. At the same time, when guys are hurt, you can see what guys can do in other positions on the floor. Do you think we'll see a little more of a settled rotation moving forward now that it seems like we've got everybody pretty much back to being healthy? And does that go a long way to helping having more fluidity on the court and more consistency on the court and looking for the things that you pointed out?
Yeah, I think it should. I think it will. And kind of like you mentioned, when Rashawn was out, we were really able to see Kyle's growth and development at that position. And he really kind of took off before his injury at Utah State. And so I think when Rashawn goes out, it obviously hurts us, but then Kyle kind of plays great and shows what he can do. And so now that we got both back, that'll be a little bit of trial and error, kind of like at Boise. We're going to play both. Who's going to play at this spot? It's going to be a little bit of trial and error there. But to your point, I do think there'll be a lot more consistency with the rotation now that guys aren't injured, guys aren't maybe playing one day, not playing the next. So I think that definitely helps the chemistry of the team, and it definitely helps going forward, everybody kind of settle into their role and just feel more comfortable in what they're supposed to be doing.
So switching gears, we've got 2 big games at home this week. I've to comment from Mile High Minute, who, by the way, won a coffee mug in a promotion I did about a week and a half ago. But going to make the drive up to Moby for Utah State on Friday. I want to talk about Air Force. Of course, they suspended head coach Joe Scott, and they brought in an assistant to take over the team and played a game against Nevada on Saturday. As you got ready for Air Force and prep for Air Force, Cole, did you see any difference in their play on Saturday versus what you might have seen previously under Coach Scott? Has there been an immediate change with this switch to an assistant coach?
There's been a few small changes, I'd say. They're maybe shooting a little faster earlier in the shot clock than most Rams fans would know from an Air Force team from over the past. He's been there for a while now, so a few years now. So I would say they are shooting the ball quicker and playing a little more free offensively with their ability just to kind of space the floor. Take 3-pointers, take earlier shots from deeper. And so I wouldn't say it's a huge stylistic change from them. They're still going to run their same type of Princeton offense. It's going to be a lot of back cuts. It's going to be a lot of testing our guys because every time you play Air Force, it's different than every team you'll play, basically. And it does help our guys probably that we run some concepts that are similar in our offense with the cutting and with the movement and stuff like that. But it's going to be a different type of game, and we know that going into the game. So I wouldn't say it's too different, but there is a few differences. You might see them, get out and transition a little more and maybe shoot a little bit earlier in the clock.
How important is it to have it like a Coach Filipovic on the bench who pretty much understands that program and is pretty intimate with what they do, and knowing that, to your point, that system really hasn't changed from coach to coach to coach. It's what they run because of, as we all know, there's somewhat the limitations that the Air Force Academy has when it comes to basketball and recruiting young men.
Yeah, no, Dave is huge in that regard. He's been through it at Air Force, and he's ran this same offense. And so I think even for scouting purposes, for our scout team, for example, he's been big just to help us, when this happens, you can then get to this, or when this happens, this is what they are trying to do, because nobody's offense is perfect. Ours is the same way. Like sometimes it's not going to look exactly like it's supposed to, but when you have Dave and you have somebody who's so familiar with that offense, he can help us kind of through those moments of like, okay, when we get stuck in this spot, this is what they are going to try to do. This is what they are taught to do. So his knowledge in that way has been kind of invaluable for this game and just in general, everything he's seen in the Mountain West over his years.
Speaking of Coach P, and of course we've had him on the show, and he's got his own coffee mug. He uses it for cold drinks, so I don't think he's.
Yeah. I've seen him use it. I can confirm that. I have seen him use it.
Shelton uses it for tea, I think, and Dave uses it for cold drinks. But is that because of the fact that he was at Air Force and was very successful at Air Force, is there any feeling from the players? I know how much they love Coach P. Is there any feeling of let's win one for Coach P as well tonight?
Yeah, no, I'm sure there is a little bit. We haven't discussed it, but I'm sure they know, all of those guys. They know he was the coach there, and like you mentioned, they all love Coach P. So I'm sure there's a little bit of that, and even more than that, it's we got to get on the right track as a team here. We've dropped 2 straight, and we need to kind of start building towards what we want to be as a team. And so I think that's probably the bigger motivation tonight, but there's definitely some underlying, we want to win it for Coach P.
And Cole, I'm assuming there's a sense of urgency because, like we said, you're 2-5 in league. It's been a bit of a slog and a struggle. And I'm not asking you to give away trade secrets, but as Coach Farokhnamesh, as he sat you coaches down saying, all right, look, we can't let these games get away from us because right now, for us to be sustainable and to finish at the top half of the league, and you never want to look. It sounds like you don't even look ahead, beyond possession. But is there looking at saying just the positioning and knowing how the league plays out? We've got to be mindful that we can't fall too far down just to be available, good seating for the conference tournament to have any shot of making the big dance again.
Yeah, and I don't think that's something that really needs to be said to the staff, and probably not to the guys either, because everybody in the program feels that and knows that. Just we all check the standings, we all know where we're at, we all know what the reality of the situation is right now. And so it really is more, this is the cliche coach speak answer, but it really is more day to day. How can we have a good shoot around? How can we have a good practice? How can we build towards tonight's game against Air Force, beating them, and then build towards Utah State, and then build towards San Diego State, because the games are going to keep coming, and they're just going to get tougher and tougher as you get closer to the end of the season. Like you said, everybody starts playing for seeding. Everybody, some teams are going to be playing for the championship. Everything just means more as you move into February, March. And so I think that it's something that he doesn't necessarily need to say to us, explicitly. I think all of us kind of just know, hey, we got to get going, and the team feels that. Everybody in the program feels that, like, it's time to go. It's time to start stacking days, starting to start stacking some wins together by playing the way we know we can.
Yeah, the one unique thing about, I thought last year's team was incredibly good about focusing on just the day.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if there was a game the next day; they were focused on that practice. And I've seen some good signs out of this team as well, and so I'm excited to see what happens. I think they were put behind the 8 ball with a couple of things. Number one, a front-loaded Mountain West schedule with the tougher teams up front, and then obviously the injuries to Mbemba and Jorgensen. So, hey, Marty, before we let Cole go, any last thoughts or questions?
Yeah, Cole, I'm going to pretend I'm an AD, and I'm going to say, you're having an interview because I'm curious. You're young. Where do you see yourself? It's that always cliche interview question. Where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 5 years, and where would you like to be?
Yeah, that's a tough question, but I think that I love where I'm at right now at Colorado State. I love the staff I work for. I love the community. I love the team that we have. I love working with the guys every day. And so I think for me right now, I'm in kind of just, I guess I'd call it a growth phase of my coaching career. I think I'm just learning a lot from all these other guys on staff. I'm learning a lot from the players every day. Every day I'm trying to just get better as a coach in my craft, in how I speak to people, how I speak to the players, how I communicate in coaching and meetings and stuff like that. So I think it's hard for me to say exactly, because this business is it's hard to predict. To be honest, it's hard to predict. I didn't know I'd be back here as quick as I am. I didn't know that Ali would get the job when he did. I didn't, know that he would offer me a job to come back. And so I think as long as you're getting better every day as a coach and you're doing the things to keep taking steps, I think, you just keep getting better, and things kind of work out the way they will. And so I'm not necessarily the type of guy that's going to be like, I need to be at this place doing this in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. I don't want to necessarily put a hard ending on where I'm going to be at. But I think as long as I keep getting better, as long as I keep learning from these guys that they're teaching me every day, and these guys have really been great for my career growth and my career just learning ability. So I think I'm on the right path, and I'm lucky. I'm fortunate and grateful to be at Colorado State where I'm at right now.
Well, I think we're fortunate and grateful to have you here as
Appreciate it.
well. Cole, we're going to let you go. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. Of course, I'll drop your coffee mug off. I'll try and bring it by tonight and catch you after the game.
Awesome.
But if
Yeah,
I
no,
can, it'll be during practice. But good luck tonight, and we'll see you soon.
okay. Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Great young man. I really enjoy him. He's a great offensive mind. He fits very much in the mold of Ali. He works a lot with the shooters as well. And you can see it in the 3-point shooting percentage. We're still top five, even having a bad 5-game run. This team is still top five in the country, and they started showing signs against Boise State, shooting 14 for 25 from three. We started seeing some scoring inside. I was actually encouraged by the Boise State game, but I want to talk about something, Marty. You know, I kind of briefed it before we leave. We can kind of close. This schedule was front loaded, and I had hoped I'd hoped the Rams could survive this schedule being so front loaded, and the injuries really set them back. But the two teams, if you look at the two teams that are what you would categorize as maybe the most disappointing so far in the conference schedule, are Boise State and CSU.
Yeah.
They were the two finalists last year in the Mountain West Conference Tourney Championship. They're both sitting at 2-5. They had, and you can look at it analytically, they've played the two toughest schedules in the Mountain West so far. Boise first, CSU second.
And injuries, and everybody says, well, people deal with injuries, but I think CSU's injuries have been unique because they're two big men and two guys you're really going to lean on were hurt. So I think that's part of it. I'll say this. I give CSU a lot of credit. I am honest, though. I mean, that Fresno State was a bad loss. I don't know how else you can categorize it. I know they're young men. I know that happens. So I'm not, I'm not saying anything negative, but that loss, that left as a fan, a bad taste in my mouth. I was encouraged by Boise too. I mean, my whole thought was we talked about this last time. You're looking for a split in that. If you can split and get that game in Fresno and you play Boise tough on the road just because you got them coming back. So I feel, and ifs and buts for candy and nuts, but probably Colorado State should probably have 2, maybe 3 more wins. And I'm not even sure necessarily in the league. You look at the some losses that they've had, a few clunkers here and there, but I am encouraged to see what they have. The schedule's weird, Steve, because it's interesting. We're going to be done with Utah State before we even play San Diego State, right? Yep. We've played Utah State to open. We've got them Friday, and we haven't gotten to SDSU and San Jose State and some of the other teams yet in the league, which is it's interesting how they decide to formulate the schedule.
Yeah, it would have been nice maybe to get a little more time before we played Utah State again. Of course, they got beat for the first time on Saturday. They got beat by Grand Canyon. CSU went down and beat Grand Canyon. It was a crazy scene. I don't know if you watched the game. That is a loud arena, and Grand Canyon absolutely elevated their game for their home crowd, and it was kind of fun to watch. But the big story in the Mountain West is San Diego State, who was not impressive, is now the only undefeated team at the top of the Mountain West, and it looks like they're finding their way. They play an 11-man rotation, and everybody was questioning it. And maybe Brian Dutcher is smarter than the average Bear.
Maybe he knows something. I mean?
Yeah, maybe he knew something, because they're really starting to play well. They beat Wyoming by double digits. They beat a good New Mexico team that's playing very, very well, and we'll see them real soon. We'll see them next week. I know we got a lot of season left, but since you are the basketball guru and you know all these things, what do you see for the rest of Colorado State's season? Will we get on the winning? I'll probably going to have a winning record in the league, but do you think we'll finish in the top 4 or 5 at this point? I mean, I guess it's like it is
the crystal ball,
but top 4. I will tell you right now, top 4 is going to be really, really tough. As you said, that Fresno loss is going to be key. That hurt them. That's a game. Those are the games you have to win. You've got Yeah, and to Fresno's credit, they are improved this year over last year, but they're still not in the top half. And what you have to do is you have to take care of business against the bottom four teams. And Wyoming has improved. Last year you could count on two wins against them pretty much. This year you can't count on one win against them because they're improved. They're significant. They're better than Fresno. They went out to Fresno and they got beat on a one possession game right after CSU played them, and CSU got beat by double digits. So I see CSU. It depends. There's some things we see Jorgensen back. He had a minutes restriction against Boise State. He'll, I think, probably continue to see minutes restrictions. But the next step, and this is what I'm dying to see, is can we see a successful lineup that can get Rashawn Mbemba and Kyle Jorgensen on the floor together for significant minutes? And can they be successful together? There are early indicators. The only time they really played minutes together was against Virginia Tech during the tournament down in the Bahamas. And in the second half, they played minutes together, and that was one of CSU's better halves. They played a few minutes against Boise State, but it was very, very late in the game. It wasn't during any part of the game other than the very, very end, and so it wasn't what I would categorize as significant minutes. So I'm dying to see if they can fit those two guys together, and if they can, you're going to have a rock solid front court with the rotation with those two guys and Carey Booth and Augie Kiadulis, and the guards are getting better and better. And so, yeah, I think you'll see a movement toward the top, and I think you'll see Boise State also play well because they're about to catch a good wave in terms of their schedule too. CSU still has Air Force today, and then Utah State, San Diego State. And that's their first 10 games, and I thought a good they could, if they played really, really well, could have finished 7-3. Now they're going to fight to finish 5-5,
Right.
or 4-6 even, and they're going to be behind the eight ball there. But if they can get this thing going and play like they're capable of playing, they could finish the last 10 9-1. It's not out of the question.
And I'm going to assume, and again, I know I don't want to ever diminish an opponent, but tonight's a must win. I mean, you've got to win a game tonight. You're playing the Air Force Academy, correct? There's no reason not to. This is a chance for the team to get healthy, and they're just, with all due respect, they're really an overmatched opponent. But this is a win. You say, look, you got to have this. You can't lay an egg in this game.
Well, and that's why I asked if they saw some differences in terms of Air Force from the coach. They've been losing by 30, and all of a sudden they only lost by 16 to Nevada. Maybe they will be a little stronger and will offer a bigger test. As Cole said, looks like they are more willing to shoot a little quicker in the shot clock. That'll be interesting for us because we have played. I don't know if you've heard this. We play at the slowest tempo of any school in Division I basketball right now. We have the slowest team. With the athletes we have, and I would like to see us play a little faster, and maybe they'll break us out of the shell of us playing as slow as we've been playing, get us to speed up our tempo a little bit too, because I think we could play a little faster, and I think we could be a little more successful. We don't have to be quite as methodical.
Right. Well, a lot of season left, but I also think if we can get everybody healthy by the time that the Mountain West tournament rolls around, I think we would be a tough out. If we can play like we did early in the year and get everybody healthy in that rotation, I think we could be I don't think there'd be a lot of teams that want to face us, but that's assuming we do the right things in the rest of the league play too, to maybe strike a little fear in people as well.
One of the things I highlighted last week on my Thursday night show was I've seen one player that is starting to, and I think the team is growing, and I think, like we talked about, with the injuries being settled, if we can stay healthy, we'll see improvement. But one player that I've highlighted, and I'm excited to see his continual growth, is Brandon Rechsteiner. He's been getting gradually better and better. And I put some numbers up on my Thursday night show where I compared Brandon Rechsteiner's numbers through his first 6 Mountain West Conference games to Isaiah Stevens' junior year, entire season. So Brandon's a junior, and if you take the numbers over 40 minutes, Brandon Rechsteiner has better numbers than Isaiah Stevens had in terms of points and assists, and the turnovers are about the same. Now, Brandon needs to learn a little bit from a leadership perspective. One thing you could not ever question was you always wanted to have an Isaiah Stevens on the floor in terms of leadership ability. He always got the team playing the right tempo at the right time. Brandon needs to learn a little bit more about that, but I've talked about I'd like to see him play some more minutes and continue to develop those leadership skills. But I wanted to highlight that because I really see him coming on, and I think that's going to help the team in the back half of the Mountain West schedule as well.
Well, guard play means everything, right? In college basketball, if you have great guard play, usually you're a pretty solid team. So
yeah. So anyway, you going to make it up to a game that you're coming up to the Utah State game?
It's like every time, my son is back healthy now playing again. So I want to check out when he's, these last couple of games he has in high school. But yeah, I definitely want to make it up to a game. I would love to come up Friday, but and Friday would be great. Not that I'm working, so it's not like I can't have to worry about the sleep piece, but it's just tough with all the moving parts I have with my kids. But yeah, I want to definitely get to a game, just that they seem to coincide with my son's games. It's like, can I get a schedule to where I can watch my kid play and then, watch the Rams? So,
well, I look forward to seeing you sitting next to President Parsons. I know
I will.
An open invite.
I was invited and then she wasn't going to be there. So they gave me an option to come to another game. So I'm waiting to hear back. So maybe I've been disinvited. I don't know.
Hey, before we go, I got to show off one new addition to my studio in my chair. Let's get out of the way here. I have a beautiful blanket.
Oh, yeah.
A beautiful CSU blanket. A close friend of ours came over to the house the other night. She's married to a former CSU running back, a guy named Ben Norman, who played back in the 70s.
Wow, okay.
And they live back in Missouri. She comes back. They used to live here. She came back and to help out with somebody, and so she came over for dinner, and she laid this blanket on me. So it's my newest addition to my studio. I'm excited. So I just wanted to make sure I thanked Anita on air. So
very good. That's lovely. That is lovely.
Yeah. It's all good. So anyway, let's call it a day. Thanks once again. Thanks to our special guest, Cole Gentry. I love the young man, and we're really looking forward to seeing what he can do and what the team can do as we start getting into the real nitty gritty. As Cole said, school's back in session. The grind is going. We're looking forward to seeing our Rams, huh?
Man, I can't wait. Looking forward to tonight. See if we can get on a good little run here.
There you go. Well, anyway, thanks again, Marty. We'll see you next week.
Thank
Go
you for
Rams.
Go Rams.